How you going, Australia? Obviously know who this is. It's Graham. Listen, this is just a quick message. Just wanted to wish everyone a fantastic new year. Hope it's very healthy, safe, and prosperous new year for everyone. Just a couple of things I wanted to get off my chest because it's a new year and I want to start on the right foot. And I want to talk just quickly about the propensity for Australians to put their trust in people and entities that have no or little chance of success. And I'm talking about independent candidates, and I'm talking about small independent parties. Let's just cover the party one first. First of all, constitutionally, political parties are unlawful, which means they're unconstitutional. You have to consider this to become a party, and you can check this with the AEC. You have to have your own constitution. The party has to have a constitution. Now, that is in direct contravention to our lawful constitution, which takes precedence over every constitution in this land. It also flies in the face of independence, because how can you have a constitution that runs beside or supports our lawful constitution, which says that there are no other constitutions unless the people establish them by meaning the majority of people. Our lawful constitution is indissoluble. It can only be dissolved by the agreement of the majority of the Australian voters and our reigning monarch, which at the moment is QE2. Regardless of what people say, we are still part of the Commonwealth. Our lawful constitution being indissoluble, the only way that we can not be part of the Commonwealth is if, as I just said, happens. Doubtful that it'll ever happen. It may happen that we get our constitution fully restored, and then we make the changes we need to make so that we might decide that we don't want the English monarch to be a part of our constitution. Why not? The people will rule, and the people will decide. The only way that you can change our constitution is with a referendum, where the majority of people, voters, vote to change the constitution. Now, the biggest problem with that is that only the parliament can call for a referendum. So we need to change that. And there's a guy out there, look him up, Mike Holt, who has been pushing citizens instigated referendums for a very long time, and has now got his mojo going with mywillaustralia.com. So have a look at that. He wants to create a grand jury style panel to judge the career politicians and their political parties as to the corruption and the unconstitutional behaviour of successive governments dating all the way back to 1913. But I digress. So, political parties, independents, God bless them, because I know in most cases their hearts are in the right place, but we've been trying this for over 100 years. It doesn't work. It's not the people that try to be elected, it's the system. The two-party preferred preferential voting system is crap. Back in, I think it was 1913, don't quote me, because I know people will say, oh, you're wrong, or, it was 1912, or it could have been 1914. The Labor Party decided that the vote was spread too thin, so they created the two-party preferred system so that they could guarantee that one of two parties would win, Labor or Liberal. Wasn't called that back then, but Labor was Labor. So what you've got is a system that you cannot win unless you are Labor or Liberal. It's not possible. You would have to stand candidates in every seat in every state of Australia. Even to get a little bit of action happening in your own state, you would have to stand a candidate in every state. Every seat in every state, and those candidates would have to be of the same thinking. The likelihood of that is, as they say in the old days, Buckleys and none. So that's two things that I wanted to get off my chest. So please don't put your faith in independents being able to change the direction of Australia. They might be able to change the direction of their own electorate if they're lucky, but the only way they're going to be able to do that is if they do deals with one of the two parties. We know that. We've seen it. Now, I know I'm going to get hailed for this, and I know I'm probably going to get a few threats, but the likes of Pauline Hanson, Corey Bernardi, Aaron Hinch, Senator Lola Helmer, I can't pronounce his name, even Jackie Lambie, they all they all fall into the same category. They talk the big talk. They very rarely get anything done unless they do deals. Now, Pauline's very vocal in the Senate. God bless her. So is Senator, that other guy. And they are vocal, but they're not changing the direction. Maybe they've been able to water a few things down, but they're not changing the direction of the respective federal governments, because they're still steering in their own political party agenda. They're still steering for their lobby groups and their special business interests. They're still steering for themselves, not for the people of Australia. We see it every day. We've got down here in Victoria, we've got young African gangs that are terrorising the streets. They're terrorising people in alfresco dining restaurants. They're terrorising the people with home invasions, with car thefts, carjackings, all this sort of thing. And our Premier, Andrews, who won by a landslide, which is mind boggles, in the last election just recently, says we don't have a problem. Well, he should come out to St Albans and have a look what happened there the other day, where the young African youth walk along the street, see a packet of cigarettes on the table, take the cigarettes, take a cigarette without asking, and then if someone says something, they just all gather round and intimidate them into doing nothing. Well, the other day they picked the wrong group, because a group of young Vietnamese guys decided that enough was enough and they fought back. Now, the upshot to that was no arrests have been made. The police are looking into it, but there's no gang problem. And also, the Vietnamese people thought, because big community of Vietnamese people in the western suburbs of Melbourne, and they're lovely people. I've got a guy next door, who's a fantastic bloke. I know quite a few Vietnamese people in the St Albans area, which is western suburbs where I live. Lovely people came to Australia as immigrants and some refugees, and worked their butts off and have created, a good life for themselves. But they're Australian Vietnamese. They're Australians and they're Vietnamese. These African youth are African youth. They're not Australian in any way, shape, or form, because they don't conform to what we do. We don't do that to people. We don't intimidate people. Very rarely, in a very minority group. So they doesn't want to do anything because they don't. It's not a problem. So the Vietnamese people had posted a few things on social media saying that they were thinking about retaliating, and they do that because we will arrest you. No vigilantes. The problem is they're not looking after it. So that's just an example of the things that the government is doing. They're bringing these people to Australia with absolutely no skills. They're not refugees. They're all very, very healthy and very able to work, but they don't work. They hide behind the fact that they are coloured skin, and so they can't get a job here. And they have different shaped eyes, different pictures. They got jobs. The Greeks came here and the Italians came here with very little English. They got jobs. The Yugoslav people, that I grew up with, came here, hardly speak English, had weird, customs and traditions, fitted in very well and got jobs. Why can't the Africans get jobs? Don't tell me it's racism, because that's bullshit. Because it's just that's what they're hiding behind. My opinion, but it'll be said. But this is what the government is doing. State governments and federal governments are bringing people to Australia, calling them refugees, giving them welfare, and letting them sit back and do nothing. And that includes people from the Arab nation, and I'm going to say it, the Muslim people, who come here with no intention whatsoever of fitting in, no intention whatsoever of assimilating, but they want to sit on getting unemployment benefits, welfare benefits, multiple wife benefits, all this sort of crap, which is taxpayers' money, and then they want to tell the taxpayer that they want to introduce their own system of law, Sharia law. See, doesn't work. That's not the Australian way. Our Anzacs didn't fight and die for that sort of crap. They fought and died for us to be the lucky country. We're not the lucky country at the moment. The only luck that's in this country at the moment is for all the people coming here that have no intention of doing anything but pick up a check. So that's what your government's doing. What is the independents, or what are the independents doing to stop it? Don't tell me that so and so said something the other day and they've agreed to reduce the refugee intake, because they haven't. They've agreed to reduce the immigration intake, but not the refugee intake. That's something totally different. Don't be fooled by the word immigration. It's totally different to refugee, because that's the UN thing. They have split it: immigration and refugees. The Poms come here, the Kiwis come here. If they muck up, we kick them out. The other ones that come here, the Africans and the Arab the Muslims that come here that don't want to work, they just want to sit on the dole, or their multiple welfare benefits. Why don't we kick them out? I don't get it. Anyway, that's what the problem is. Independents cannot change that. Small independent parties cannot change that. How do we change it? Well, it's not going to be easy, but it is pretty simple. We need to fully restore our 1901 Constitution, which has 8 lawful changes. And before everyone starts jumping up and down saying, "Oh, 1901, women couldn't even vote then." Well, yeah, but with the 8 lawful changes, they can vote, and our first Australians, our Indigenous, can vote, and everyone is treated equal under our lawful Constitution. But we also have some rules and regulations that have been stuck into our Constitution without our knowledge and without our permission. And I go back to the Whitlam era, when he created, he created a document which was a version of our lawful Constitution, which enabled them, and when I say them, I mean career politicians, to make changes by stealth. And then Bob Hawke came in I think it was '86, and created the Australia Act, which removed the Queen. It's all unlawful. It's all unconstitutional. So it doesn't really matter. But that's the framework we're working in. Now, having said all that, independents have no chance of changing anything unless they do some backroom deals. But more to the point, they are actually independents calling for change in an unlawful system, which is the two-party preferred system. It's unlawful because it takes away our right to vote for who we want to vote for. Because I vote for Joe Blow, and then Joe Blow's done a deal with Fred Brown, and he gives my preference, even though I've preferenced the one I want. Those preferences can give their preferences to somebody else. So you don't actually know who you're voting for anymore, unless you vote for Labor or Liberal. And if you do that, then I've got a good psychologist and a psychiatrist that I can nominate for you to get some help, because you're mentally deficient. And the reason I say that is to anyone that has mental issues, because we are, and I say we because we've all done it. I voted Labor because my dad did, and his dad did, and his dad did. And now I wouldn't touch any or their unlawful parties or any candidates, for that matter, within the system, because I know the system is just corrupt. It's tainted. The system is unbalanced, and it's basically unfair, because we can't get to vote for the people we want to vote, but the system is no good anyway. So get rid of the system, and then we have simply one man, one vote. And for those of you who are going to correct me on that, one person, one vote. That's it. And that vote goes to one person. One man, or the LBGQWXYZ things, because that is the first thing that we would have a look at, and a referendum would go to the people to see if the same-sex legislation, because it's not just marriage, stand the pub test, because the people need to decide, not in a plebiscite, which is just a waste of money. It needs to be a referendum. And so does everything else that affects the future of this country, needs to be in a referendum. And we need citizen-initiated referendum. I don't like the word citizen, but we need public, if you like, public-instigated referenda, so that we can have input into how we are governed. Now, I'm a big believer that there are too many tiers of government. I don't think that we need three. I think that we need a federal body. Uh, the powers of that federal body would be to uh, join together with the state representatives. I don't believe we need state and local. What I do believe is I think we need to utilise the infrastructure we have. Okay, we've got a state parliament in every state, and we've got all these shire officers and council officers all over the joint. I reckon we should break down the system and enable people to go to those shire offices, which would be the state uh, regional office, if you like, and they'd be dotted all around each state and territory. And the people would go to meetings there, and that's how they would elect a representative for that particular shire region, council region, if you want. Don't like the word council either. And that region would then nominate a representative to sit in the Victorian or in the state, whichever state it was, in the state parliament, and they would go there and they would discuss the things that the state needed regionally, and they put their case forward. So what you would have then is, and then there would be obviously a vote, and the vote would be based on need, not greed, but need. And then those representatives would take those needs to the federal body, and the federal body would create the referendum to go back to the people. That's just me spitballing. But that's how I see it. So a federal body and a state regionalised body that met in the state parliament. And I think that would work, because then you and me and all the other Australians out there that are over 18 and can vote can go. But you see, the other thing is too that even the younger ones can put forward, in different forums, their ideas for what they see that they need in the future. Because at the end of the day, our children are our future. Sorry about this. And the thing that you have to understand is that if we don't say something, then if we don't say what we want, then other people will give us what they think we want, and that's not necessarily what we want. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Mike Holt is a great Australian patriot. He's got his website, mywillaustralia.com. And I've mentioned before to a few of you, probably many of you, that Mike wants to try and convene a grand jury style panel to look into the government and the corruption, the unconstitutional, unlawful acts, the distribution of our wealth, the sale of our Commonwealth assets and resources, and a whole bunch of other things. And I see that as the forerunner to us Australians getting control of our country back again with a constitutional government. Now, that requires names on pieces of paper. Now, we can get 100, 200,000 signatures about people who don't like same-sex marriage, who don't like vaccines, who don't like building of mosques and things like that. Surely we can get 500,000 or 1 million signatures on a My Will letter, which basically says that you want this grand jury style thing established, and the government held to account, government and career politicians held to account, even the system of voting held to account. The AEC, which is supposed to be an independent body that gives us information on voting, which actually they tell us how to vote. They tell us if we don't vote, we'll get fined. So they can't be independent, and they're certainly not part of the people. They're part of the government, my opinion again. So that's what we need to do. So look Mike up. And also yellow vests. I think we should do something in Australia with the yellow vests. My biggest fear is rent-a-crowd. We don't want to be burning cars. We don't want to be smashing people's shop windows and things like that. How does that help anyone? I don't see that helps anyone. I don't want to see any violence. I certainly don't want any of our patriots hurt. I certainly don't want any of our Australian businesses hurt. But I do think that we should get our voices heard, and the only way we can do that is to is to peacefully demonstrate. It's our right, it's our constitutional right to protest, but we have to be very aware and alert to the renter crowd, because they send them in, and they, you know who they are, they send them in to make us look stupid and make us look violent, and then they tar us with the same brush as just violent thugs. We don't need that. It takes away the importance of our message, and it also can injure us. So anyone out there that's organising yellow vest marches, protests, whatever you want to call them, please get in touch with me. I know Mike's got his finger in the pie there, and also because I'm interested in helping. And just on that helping too, a lot of people say to me, "Oh, I can't help because I'm too old." Listen, please, age is a state of mind. I'll be 64 in March. I ain't going anywhere. I'm okay. I'm reasonably fit, reasonably healthy, but my passion, the fire in my belly burns very, very strong, and I'm sure it does with you people too, who think you're too old. You can spread the word. You can spread the message. You can talk to people. You can send people letters. You can do lots of things. You don't have to be out there in the street marching, but you can help. So please don't think that you're too old or that you're too unhealthy, because there's always something you can do. And you know what? Giving you a purpose could even actually improve your life. So the purpose is to do whatever we need to do to fully restore our lawful constitution, which is the one with only 8 lawful changes. And we're going to do whatever we need to do that. So 2019, the year of the Australian constitutionalist. I'm a proud constitutionalist and a patriot. I'm a 4th, possibly 5th generation Aussie. But you know what? I don't care whether you're 1 generation or whether you're half a generation or whatever. If you're an Aussie, you're an Aussie. And if you want to help, please help. And if you think you can't help, get in touch with me. I've got 2 pages, my own page, Graham Jeffs, and then I've got my Graham Jeffs Australian Constitutionalist page, and I've got the group Australia for Australians. You can get hold of me anywhere. My email address is grahamjeffs@outlook.com. And let's fire up 2019. Let's make them hear that we have no confidence in them. Let's make them do something. You know what? Even though we know that we're going to turf them out, even if they start doing things that are good for Australia, we're not going to stop that. But what we do want to stop is the UN influence, the New World Order influence, this immigration refugee invasion, and we need to get back to what our Anzacs fought for. And I say this, and I say this often. This is the biggest ever action that the Australian people need to take since the Eureka Stockade. Eureka Stockade, they said, you know what, stuff this. We're going to stand up to you. Okay, it didn't end as well as what they wanted, but they were not that organised. But we have a history of standing up for our own rights. We have a history of standing up for the rights of others. We have a history of rolling our sleeves up and getting shit done. And that's what we need to do. We need to all be together. Australia for Australians. That's what we're saying. And you know what? Anyone can come here as long as they want to be Australian. If they want to come here and be something else, don't come here. And, we certainly don't want a government that wants to bring people here knowing that they don't want to be Australians and knowing that they want to change Australia into something else. We don't want that. We want Australia for all Australians as equally as possible. Need, not greed. Okay, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to share and feel free to comment, get to me, and let's make 2019 the year of our lawful 1901 Constitution restoration. See ya. Love you all.